Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Bridging Call webinar Q&A session today. We're still waiting on a couple of more participants to join us, so a few more moments, please. So nice to see many familiar names. While we're waiting for more people to join us, Michaela has kindly put a poll on the screen. So if you could answer the question, do you have previous experience with the Interact NPA program and projects? So far, the majority has. But there's some new faces as well, so that's very nice. I think we will start very soon. Thank you for answering the poll. I will ask Michaela to put up the slides to start the session today. Thank you very much, Michaela. Right, let's get started. Let me introduce myself first. I'm Kirsty Meinheimer, and I'm the head of Secretariat for the Northern Periphery and Arctic Program. And today we are here with colleagues from the Joint Secretariat, Christopher Parker.
Hello.
Michaela Gaifami, who's waving without sound. And we also have Kalle Pakkeleen with us.
Hello.
And today we're going to answer your most pressing questions about the new call that we're launching, the bridging call. I would ask Michaela to go to the next slide, please. So the main purpose of the call is to answer your technical questions about this call. So this is not a project development session. And we estimated the time for the webinar and the Q&A that follows will be in total approximately 60 minutes. And next slide, please. So what can you expect from today? We will give you an update on where the preparations are for the new program, as this bridging call is kind of anticipating the new program. You will also learn about the aims of the bridging call, more about the eligibility rules and the rules about the budget for the projects in this call. And finally, the application procedure and guidance for applicants. So this is the main structure of the session today. And now we'll hand over to Michaela for a couple of instructions about Zoom.
Thank you very much. We just run through the basic instructions about Zoom, even though most of you, if not everybody, already knows how this works. We'll ask you to please keep your microphones muted during while the speakers are presenting. And if you agree to your name being displayed in the participants list and live on YouTube, we ask you please to rename yourself from the participants list. To do that, you need to activate the lower toolbar of Zoom and click on the icon participants. And then with your mouse, you'll go over your name and a little blue icon will show up with the option to rename yourself. And again, we ask you to please put your names there so that we can identify you. But we would also like to make you aware that right after this presentation, we will start recording this webinar, and we are also going live on YouTube. So I have to inform you, if you keep your video open, if you put your name, you consent to us showing this information about yourself live on YouTube and on Facebook. If you prefer to follow this seminar completely anonymously, you're welcome to log out from Zoom and follow from YouTube directly. We will anyway take your questions, and you can post them in the chat of YouTube. We will publish also the recording of this webinar on the website of the NPA program. I will be monitoring questions that come through the chat, and we invite you to use the chat to write your questions while the presenters are speaking. During the question and answer session, we ask you to lift your virtual hand, and you will find the virtual hand under the reactions button on your Zoom toolbar or in the participants area, depending on which Zoom version you're using. If you don't find your hand, your virtual hand, please turn on your microphone and call us, and we'll give you the floor. This was it from me. I will get the next set of slides ready for us to start.
Thank you very much, Michaela. So we will start by listening to the message that the meeting is being recorded. Yes, so we will start with an update about the programming process for the upcoming NPA 2021-2027. But I will start with a few notes about the current program. And for those of you who are new to Interact NPA, I hope I will go through this very quickly. So I apologize if this is maybe a lot of information you don't know yet, but there is some background information about the program in the terms of reference for the call, and also, of course, on our website and everything. But perhaps, Michaela, if you could go to the next slide, I could give the 1-minute summary of the current program, or of the program in general. So the Interact NPA program has been an Interact program for 20 years. And this means that it builds on a long history where the geography has maybe slightly changed and the themes have maybe slightly varied from one program to the next, but the general themes have been very similar. As you can see on the small map, The program area is quite enormous, especially for an Interreg program. So the area stretches from the Finnish-Russian border all the way to Greenland in the west, and it's mostly the northern parts of countries. So a lot of it actually, it's a large share of the European Arctic that is part of the program area. But not only Arctic countries, there are also what we call near Arctic regions. So we have in the current program Scotland and Northern Ireland, as well as Ireland as part of the program area. And what all these regions have in common is that they're all peripheral regions, remote and sparsely populated communities that have specific challenges that they have in common and topics on which they can cooperate and learn from each other and develop good solutions. Because often people from these remote communities understand each other better, even if they're from different countries, than someone from the same country from a more urban community. So it's very valuable to have this sort of community of peripheral regions. And some of the countries are inside the EU and some are outside, and some have switched during the program period. But just for clarification for this call, the UK is still using EU money in this call. But Christopher will explain that a little bit later. So yeah, we have currently 4 priority axes addressing the challenges and opportunities in the program area. We have innovation, we have entrepreneurship, we have renewable energy and energy efficiency, and finally we have natural and cultural heritage. And there you can see on the screen the number of projects, main projects that we have approved in these priorities. So we have 58 projects in total, and that will be the final total of main projects because this program is nearly at an end. We are really at the moment with this bridging call spending the last remaining euros of the program budget. So this is the final opportunity in the current program to apply. If going to the next slide, I can say something about the upcoming program, and you can also see at the top of the screen a different logo for this new program. The main difference you would notice between the previous program and the next program is the geography is different. Unfortunately, the UK is no longer a program partner country. And there has been some other smaller changes to the geography in Norway, for example. Some of the west coast of Norway that is currently part of the program will no longer be part of the program. On the other hand, in Ireland, there will be additional counties that are part of the program area. So there are some smaller changes there. And then the programming committee has agreed to discuss with Russia how they can become a program partner country, but that will not happen before the actual start of the program. So the plan is that they will join during the program period. And of course, we hope that something similar could happen for the UK, but at the moment we have no confirmation from Scotland and Northern Ireland that they will be part of the program. At least they won't be from the start. So that's something to be kept in mind. And another thing is that, of course, this also has had an impact on the program budget, which is reduced compared to today. And that's mainly because of the UK no longer being part. So you can see the approximate budget is 43.7 compared to around 50 million euros today. And then there's plus the non-member states funding. So that's the funding for Norway, Iceland, Faroe Islands, and Greenland. So that's a reduction to be taken into account. The programming committee has selected 3 themes for the new program, and we have developed priorities around them. Michaela, I can see that box on the slide. Thank you. So we have excuse the jargon, it's called Policy Objective 1. So this is the terminology from the new regulations on the themes. The first one is Smarter Europe, and then we have Greener Low Carbon Europe, and finally a Better Cooperation Governance. And that last one is specific for Interreg programs, and the first ones can be chosen by all the ERDF programs. The status is that after approximately 1 year of preparations, we have drafted a program document for the new program, and this is now sent to the national governments of the program partner countries of the future program for their approval. And it's only after they agree to what is in it that we can submit the new program document to the European Commission. And we expect to do that around October time, but that depends on how quickly we get the national approvals. And then there's usually a little bit of a back and forth with things that need to be clarified or adapted. And hopefully then at some point, the new program will be adopted. And exactly the timing for that, we don't know at the moment. We are aiming to launch a first call in the new program late this year, but that depends on the speed of the national approvals and also where we are in terms of submitting the document to the Commission and the nature and types of the clarifications that are needed. But we're planning to launch the first call before the program is formally adopted. But on the other hand, we can only approve projects after the program is formally approved, because before that we don't have a budget and all these things. So that's something to be kept in mind. We were working towards launching a first call later this year, but it might be that it's not possible before early next year, but we will see how that goes. Next slide, please. This is my final slide, and this is to give you a little bit more of a flavor of the priorities, the 3 priorities. So the first one, which is based on this Smarter Europe, we have called strengthening the innovation capacity for resilient and attractive NPA communities. And under this priority, we will have 3 specific objectives. The first one is focused on enhancing research and innovation capacities. The second one is focused on reaping the benefits of digitization for citizens, companies, research organizations, and public authorities. And the third one is about enhancing sustainable growth and competitiveness of SMEs. Oh, and now my slide went. If you could go back, thank you. And so these 3 are addressing the Smarter Europe, but of course there are also some elements of sustainability in there. Then we have a Greener Low Carbon Europe, which is what priority 2 is based on. So we've called that one strengthening the capacity for climate change adaptation and resource sufficiency in NPA communities. And there we also have 3 specific objectives. The first one focused on promoting energy efficiency and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The second one on promoting climate change adaptation and disaster risk prevention. And the final one, promoting the transition to a circular and resource efficient economy. And this is the priority that is probably most aligned with the Green Deal, the European Green Deal. And finally, we have priority 3, which is based on this Interreg specific objective called a better cooperation governance. And here we have called it strengthening the organizational capacity among NPA communities to make use of cooperation opportunities. And here it's the specific objective is focused on the capacity to implement territorial strategies. And this is a kind of new kind of priority or theme, because it's not really focused on one sector or on a theme as such, but it's more about promoting cooperation. And as you may be aware, the NPA is coordinating a network of cooperation programs in the Arctic. So the EU Arctic policy will be one of the main territorial strategies that we will be focusing on, but there are other strategies relevant to the NPA area. So it's not only focused on the Arctic, but at least to take that as an example, that is basically a cooperation between programs, and much of the cooperation has been on program level, but the idea with this priority is really to bring the cooperation to the level of stakeholders and involve them and make use of local knowledge to be better prepared and build the capacity for cooperation. So it's more like almost like a meta priority. It's about making it better, easier to cooperate. So it could be a preparatory project that makes it then easier to cooperate in one of the other priorities. And most of priority 3 will probably be small projects as well. So you can read more about this in Annex 2 of the Terms of Reference for this call, where we go a bit deeper into the priorities, what we have come up with, and who the main stakeholders are, and what types of actions we will fund under the priorities there. So this is what I would like to present as part of the status of the programming process. That was quite a lot of information, but I hope you were able to follow along. I think then we hand over to Christopher to tell us more about this bridging call.
Thank you, Kirsty. And Michaela's just going to set up the slides for us. Bridging calls have been part of our history for a number of programming periods. And as Kirsty was mentioning, towards the end of a program, there's tends to be some money that's not been allocated or has been come back to us in decommitted funds. And we use that to help us bridge literally from the current programming period to the future programming period. And we found this to be quite a successful tool. So we're basing this call on past history and the monitoring committee saying, come on, chaps, let's have another go at it and see what we can come up with. So if I could ask Michaela to go to the next slide. And so the purpose of bridging is really to get projects into the pipeline and to get project idea developers working together to put the program into a positive position going forward, to strengthen the start of the program, but also for the project developers and their consortiums to be ready to go. And as Kirsty was mentioning, we could be by the end of this year starting off with the first call and then having decisions made next year. And that's all flexible based on what Kirsty was saying about national consultations and what needs to happen after that before we can actually get the get-go. But by having preparatory projects that are based on the pipeline concept, it puts us in a position where we can sort of get ready for the new program and also give us some assistance in a way going forward in terms of how strong those themes are. Not that we're judging projects already, but it just gives us a sense in terms of going forward. And so by having preparatory projects start to get their minds around the themes of the current program going into the new program, it gives project developers an opportunity to sort of thrash out their ideas, as it were. And the next slide, please, Michaela. So what you need to know is very important about where the funds come from. The funds are coming from the current programming period. And as Kirsty was mentioning, this allows for all the current programming partner countries to be involved, with the emphasis of targeting the future program and the priorities and the specific objectives that have been approved by the programming committee. But what we expect you to do is to have a good view on what's happening in the current program. And a number of you have already been involved in the current programming, whether it's through preparatory projects or main projects, or maybe even several main projects. So it's to take that view of what we've done now and match it to the future specific objectives. And here I'd encourage you, as we've already posted on our website, some documents to help you. Kirsty's already mentioned Annex 2, which gives a very detailed illustration of the new priorities and specific objectives in the new program. But more importantly, I draw your attention to Annex 1, which gives a comparison of the current programming themes and specific objectives and how they link up to the future. And so that will put you in a position that when you're starting to get your mind around, well, am I in priority 1, 2, 3, 4? How does that match into the new policy objectives into the new program? So you and your team, when developing your project idea, have to have a clear view of where you want to go with your application. If I could ask you to go to the next screen. So as I was mentioning, your project idea must address one of the 4 policy axes that we have in the current program, whether it's in the innovation annex, or into the entrepreneurship or the energy efficiency and energy, and the final priority axis that we have in natural and cultural heritage. So they're the 4 policy and priority axes from the current program. And as I say, Annex 1, we've mapped it out for you in a matrix for you to get that view of how it moves over. So I'd encourage you to study that quite closely. The project duration of these projects, the bridging projects, should be 6 months. And the reason behind that is that the process is such that we're going to open the call in August, and it's going to run through and close in October, and then decisions in December. And then we're looking forward to projects starting possibly as early as January, but more than likely February, and run for 6 months. It should take you to the end of the summer, middle of the summer. And at that point, we could be in a position where the first calls is not only open, but we will be in a position to accept applications. It's in theory, but this is the point of having 6-month projects. Now, as we have in all of our projects, whether main or preparatory projects, and in this case, bridging projects, the eligible partner lead partner must be a public organization, and that lead partner must be located in the program partner countries, either in a member state or in a non-member state of Iceland or Norway. And that's very specific to what we're doing now. So as Kirsty was mentioning, that the new programming area may be shrinking with not having Northern Ireland and Scotland, but they can also be involved in this bridging call. Now, we follow along, as we always have done, with lead partners, and then following a principle that as lead partners, they're there to take on the responsibility of coordinating the project and meeting with ourselves at the Secretariat. So there's a very important role for lead partners, and they must be public organizations. And if you're not sure where you fit in there, give us a call at the Secretariat and we'll work with you to figure out how we see you. Most organizations, if they're not sure, it's best to talk to us rather than putting an application forward and finding out that, well, actually, you're not eligible to be a lead partner. So that's a word of caution for you when you're putting your application forward. As with all calls, we've had, I think, 8 of them now, and we've had ongoing preparatory project calls. We've had COVID response calls, clustering calls. All of the applications have to be put forward in EMS, and that's how we accept all of our applications. And next slide, please, Michaela. Our rules haven't changed, and they can be found on our website. And you can view those in our program manual there. Categories, for example, of expenditures for this type of project, the bridging call, is limited to staff costs, office administration, travel, and external experts, unlike our main projects, which have a few more categories, for example, equipment. These projects are designed to be quick, efficient, and effective. And to do that, we have a project budget, and we recommend in this bridging call that ERDF funding asked from the program is recommended to be 60,000 euros in total. That budget should be proportional, but if you are thinking about going over the 60,000 recommended project budget for ERDF, we'd ask you to take a conversation with us because we've been encouraged by the monitoring committee to allow it to have grants to go up to 100,000, but in well-justified cases. As per usual, member state budgets, they run as using, and non-member states using their, my screen's going to switch off. Excuse me, here we go. And we run the regular intervention rate. So ERDF's countries and member states, 65% intervention rate, Norway 50% intervention rate, Iceland 60%, and Greenland and the Faroe partners, because Greenland and Faroes can't be lead partners in preparatory projects, their intervention rate is 65%. What's important to know that when you've developed your budget, at the very end of the project, we use the lump sum principle, which means that it is very effective for you and efficient because we don't need to have the involvement of first level controllers, which means that if you're over budget, that's your business. That's for you to fund. If you're under budget, then because it's a lump sum principle, you don't get decreased on that lump sum. You get the amount that's been granted by the monitoring committee and of course seen through to contracting by the managing authority. Could I go to the next slide, please, Michaela? Just a little more information about the lump sum. It's all based on a regulation that we have, and it's established through you making your draft budget, and on a case-by-case basis, we work through to the point where it's been agreed that an ex-ante is agreed ex-ante by the managing authority, and that your public support, which is ERDF support and public co-financing for partners via ERDF, cannot exceed 100,000. If you're not too sure about that, you're welcome to ask questions. We've used this, the lump sum principle for all of our preparatory projects, and we've recently used it for a clustering project call, and before that we had some projects in our 7th call where we used again the same principle of lump sum. It's very useful for us to use it in this programming period, and it's moving forward into the next programming period, so we can look forward to continuing to use the lump sum principle. Could I take us to the next slide, please, Michaela? Special note, as we've mentioned a couple of times, is that partners and lead partners from Scotland and Northern Ireland should apply for ERDF, and they're welcome to do that because the programming period allows for that at this point, not into the future, though, as Kirsty was mentioning, that still needs to be determined. But as we're saying, there's conversations going on. So the procedure, right now, you chaps are all getting a heads up on through this pre-announcement that we made 2 weeks ago and this webinar to get a sense of where we're wanting you to go and where you could go. And it gives you a bit of time over the summer to think. So we're going to be opening up the call officially August the 16th, and we're going to run through until October the 8th. And then after that point, it's for us at the Secretariat to start doing some admissibility and eligibility checks, and then we share it with our regional contact points who will give an opinion from their regional perspectives. And then by December, we then pass it over to the monitoring committee to make their decisions. This is a process that we've used multiple times, in fact, all the time with all of our calls. And we find that doing the technical assessment at the beginning, and then in the regional contact points giving their view, and then finally the decisions being made by the monitoring committee works well for everybody. It's a process, as I say, will start in October for us and end on December the 8th. So decisions will be more than likely released unofficially shortly after that date, and then officially more than likely before we break for the Christmas holidays. If I can go to the next slide, please. So guidance for you chaps. In the program manual, there's descriptions of the annexes for the current program. We'd ask you to read those through. We will also be putting onto the website as of October the 16th the instructions for how to apply. You'll be able to see the regulations that we already have in terms and eligibility rules already found in our program manual. So you can already start to read up there. And this is really for the our newcomers, the people that are interested in developing a project that haven't worked with us before. For those that have been involved in projects, it's there for you to refresh your minds if you'd like. We will be establishing for the 16th a dedicated page for the documents to be found. Part of it has already been established now with the pre-announcement. That's the same page to go to find your instructions and other documents that are required when making an application. We invite you to join us again if you would like to. We're going to be hosting a How to Apply seminar on September the 9th, and we're going to run that between 1 o'clock or 13 to 15 Central European time. So if you haven't put it in your diary and you'd like to join us, please do so at any time. And on our website, you can see our schedule for the summer. And if we're here, we'll take the call or the email. So you're welcome to call us if one of us are available. And please see and make use of our regional contact points. They've been used in the past, and please do so use them. And also visit our website, where you've already found some instructions already about being here with us today, but this is going to be the same site or web page that we're going to put the information. So could I ask Michaela to take us to the next page? One thing that I think is important for you in your planning is that we need to have from you one final report, which is due 3 months after the completion of the project, and it should be received no later than November the 30th. So that's important for you when putting your application forward and knowing what kind of timelines we have. That's the drop dead deadline for when we need to receive your reports and your claim for your lump sum, because at the end of 2022 on December 31st, the current program finishes, and that's slutput final. So your final report should include evidence of your work, and that will be put into the grant offer letter. And if you're taking on case studies or feasibility studies, you're doing shareholder mapping or target group development, this is where you need to evidence all your work. And what is important to know that the lump sum principle allows us on this end to give you that money if you've completed and evidenced what you said you were going to do. Now, keep in mind, part of our aim of having a bridging call is that you have a mind to creating a main project application into the new programming period. So that's something we're looking forward to you doing in your project, in your bridging call project. And if we can slide over to the next page, is this where I pass it over to you, Michaela?
Thank you very much. Well, as I explained before, you can now ask your questions, and you can do that directly here on Zoom, finding your virtual hand or turning on your microphone and asking for the floor directly. If you're following us on YouTube, there is a chat option there, and there is also the possibility to write on a comment on the Facebook post about this live video. The floor is yours.
I think I could see some questions in the chat.
There has been a little exchange in the chat indeed. Caroline was wondering if she should carry on with the webinar at this stage if the UK isn't eligible. And Kirsty replied that in this call, UK is eligible. I don't know, Christopher, if you want to explain again, bridging call and next program.
Yep. So for this current call, the bridging call, in practice, this program ends December 31st, 2022. And if you recall, I was mentioning that the reports have to be in by November. So everything that you're doing in terms of this program, current programming period, has to be done inside of those timelines. And the UK, in the form of Northern Ireland and Scotland, are eligible not only as lead partners, but also as partners in the bridging call.
Thank you. There is a new question in the chat from Brandon. Can there be more than one partner per member state?
Absolutely. But of course, as with these types of projects and any sort of preparation project, you want the lead partner needs to make sure that the partnership is manageable. But we must take you back to there's a minimum of partners who should come in. One should be from a member state, and there could be more. And the lead partner, as mentioned, has to come from a member state, or from Norway, or from Iceland.
Thank you. A new question in the chat from Jose Manuel. Do you have an estimation about how many projects you expect to be approved in this call?
That's a good question. We haven't been limited by the monitoring committee on this. So I think it would be fair to say we will take all the projects that have come in, and as with all calls, it's based on the merit and the quality of the application that goes forward. So we're not drawing any lines in the sand saying we're only going to take so many. As Kirsty was mentioning, the program's coming to an end, and there is some decommitting of some monies that we may not know now that could be coming in. So we have, I would say, a little more flexibility in terms of available funding from previous programming period, because as we all know, we've been going through this pandemic recently, and a lot of projects have not been traveling, for example. So when our current projects are making claims, they're not claiming for any travel, the main projects that is, because they've not been traveling. So there is some money coming back. How much that is, we don't know, but we're not talking millions here, but we are talking smaller projects, as we've mentioned, in terms of the size of the projects for the 6 months worth of work. So we're not limiting ourselves, but we will be basing it on the quality and how you match yourself to the terms of reference. So if you're thinking current program, priority 1, is that matching perfectly with the new future program and the specific objectives there? So it's based on the quality of your application. Are you meeting the terms and conditions of the terms of reference? And that's what ourselves look at, as well as we get a view from our regional contact points who give us a view sometimes as well on this. So no limitation at this point. I don't know if Kirsty wants to add anything to those comments.
I think you've said it very well. Basically, it seems also our monitoring committee is really willing to spend whatever we have left in the program, maybe even a little bit more, knowing that there's still a lot of projects closing and some monies will probably be coming back. But I think we will be able to give a more accurate picture of the remaining funds at that September event that we're organizing. So stay tuned.
Thank you. More questions coming in the chat from Saila. Is the minimum number of partners 3 partners from 3 countries? Lead partner plus 2 partners?
Maybe I can take that because I have the terms of reference open. So in the terms of reference, you can read something about the project structure, and there it's saying that there's a minimum of 2 partners from 2 different program partner countries, at least one of which is in an EU member state. And it also says that actually the recommended project size is 3 to 4 partners. And then there can be additional associated partners. So those are partners without budget. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Kirsty. We're moving on to the next question from Anastasia. Would cross-border partnership between Barents countries work? I mean, Norway, Finland, and Russia.
I would say in theory, because there is Norway as a lead partner or Finland as a lead partner, that's that one ticked off, and you've got a non-member state, so that's ticked off. Russia they've been involved with projects with us. So ideally though, Anastasia, in projects, we like to get partners from the Scandics, the Celtics, and then the Atlantic, because we are a transnational program. And that's the emphasis of the work that we do. It's transnational. but in theory, you've got the right combination. You've got your member states, you've got another partner from another program partner country, and then you've got a third partner being Russia. So it's there, but I mean, if we were to look at a cross-border project versus a transnational, there's a greater weighting in our minds because we have a transnational program to move in the transnationalness, if that's a word, of a project application.
I can maybe also complement that by saying that for partners from outside the program area, and in this case that would be Russia, but also from other partner countries or countries outside the program area, we have a special what we call geographical flexibility rule. So it is possible in justified cases for the program to allocate EU money to these partners coming from outside that are not in the EU. And you can read more about that in the program manual. I can paste some information in the chat about where you can find this information, but basically it needs to be justified, and it's the monitoring committee that decides whether they are willing to allocate this funding for external partners. So it's not a given. So you should maybe be aware of that. If you have any questions, specifically if you're talking to partners from outside, I would advise that you get in touch with the Joint Secretariat just to check what's possible and what's not possible in this case.
Thank you. I will take the next question coming in the chat from Martin. Is there a scope for sub-partner, i.e. SME, or can they be part of a main project partner's budget?
This is always, we've discouraged sub-partners because it becomes very complex for a partner. We would encourage an SME to come in as a partner rather than be a sub-partner. And it's really based on our experience that it doesn't work so well. So they can come in as a partner would be my encouragement, Martin, if you are dealing with SMEs.
Thank you. Then there was another question from Jose Manuel about Canadian partners being eligible as main partners, and Kirsty has already covered this. Martin, would you like to take the floor so you can ask your follow-up question directly?
Sorry, yes. It's just to ask if SME was joining as a partner, would it matter if their budget requirements were rather small? There's no bottom limit on that, is there?
No, not really. The key thing to remember with SMEs is that they have an intervention rate of 50%, unlike the other program partner countries. With their intervention rate, with SMEs, it's very specific for all SMEs across all of the program partner countries that they have this stipulation that they have to bring in 50%, which is more than like in other ERDF cases. Of course, if the SMEs from Norway, it's 50% anyway. But that's the one sort of, I wouldn't say catch, but the other provision that needs to be thought about. We've had projects that have had, come in for 25,000. We've had them come in for 10,000. I mean, it's, you really have to, and it's a short-term project when you're chatting with your SME to make sure that they actually understand what they're getting involved in such a short project and what kind of efforts they want to put into what they're doing. There's not the large reporting requirements as there are in main projects, but in preparatory projects, because we use the lump sum, it's a little more conducive, I think, in terms of the ease of the administrative burden on SMEs coming in. So there's no upper or lower there, but you have to be sensible about a proportional budget with all your partners and likewise with SMEs.
Is it a possibility if the SME found the 50% match funding a difficulty, is it possible to fund the SMEs through your own budget as an external expertise as you would in a main project potentially? So
for example, if I'm understanding where you're going with that line of thinking, if you were to hire them through whatever national, and because we're dealing with small, possibly small money, you'd have to find out what your tendering processes are to hire them. But yes, it is possible through your own partner budget to hire them on as an expert, and that goes on all the time.
Okay, thank you.
So Kirsty has pasted in the chat information from the program manual about where to find the details for including partners from outside the NPA area. It's pasted in the chat. You have a direct link to the document, and the specific information can be found on page 28 of the manual. I don't see any more questions coming in the chat, and no virtual hands are raised among the participants.
Maybe Kala has some questions from YouTube, if there's any comments.
There's actually no questions, just a comment from Brian Whittington. Thank you for your presentations, and great to see the NPA going from strength to strength, albeit minus Scotland, but there seems to be some hope on that part.
We hope that as well, Brian. That basically we don't have any formal confirmation or information to share about whether Scotland and Northern Ireland will join as program partner countries, but we hope that they will find a way to do that. At least from the regulations that were actually published, I think yesterday, the European regulations, the UK is mentioned as a third country, which makes it possible, I think, from the European side. But of course, joining as a program partner country requires several things to be in place before that's possible. So, yeah, I'm afraid that's all I can say at the moment. I don't know if there's any other questions based on what we've said.
I don't see any more questions coming. I see just another little comment, whether the presentations will be available, and yes, we're going to upload them on the event page on our website. And this recording also will be available on the same event page on the NPA website. But as Kirsty and Christopher were mentioning, we'll have another opportunity to go through the terms of reference and how to apply on the 9th of September at 1 o'clock Central European time.
Yes, and then we will give some more information about how to apply in terms of how to put in your application in the monitoring system and all these things, the more technical stuff.
So should we move on to the last?
Yeah, I mean, if you have further questions, of course. Okay, now we'll have another poll, sorry.
Yes, let us know your feedback about this info webinar. Did you find this was useful, and do you plan to submit an application to the bridging call for projects? I hope this little window appeared on your screens as well. No, because I have to click here. There we go.
Maybe Christopher, while people are voting, could you say something about the sort of this preparatory project tool and how we've used the bridging call before? Because I think our first call in the current program was definitely based on the bridging call from the previous program, wasn't it?
That's absolutely right. It's a very useful tool for you as project developers and sort of getting your minds around what's coming forward. But for us as a program, for example, at the beginning of this program, I think we may have approved something like 18 bridging call projects that went forward, that were approved. And then I think out of that 18, because the monitoring committee was really keen to move forward, I think around 10 or 12 of them were approved as main projects. So it does have it has a good success rate. And for the monitoring committee in the new program, getting a kickstart going forward, and the pipeline as we're developing again, and that principle going forward will hopefully reap the same benefits. But as people coming to this event and hopefully our how to apply in September, it gives you even more of a sort of a boost in terms of the information. Your minds are getting around what's going forward. And even before this call and the one at the beginning of the current program, we did the same thing in what was then called the Northern Periphery Program. And that's where I think we first targeted using this whole idea of bridging. And again, the same positive response and success was measured then as it was in the current program. And of course, the monitoring committee's seen this success, especially because it makes it so much easier now, because we're doing the lump sum principle and we're not having to use auditors, that it's an easier process is our opinion. And this is why it's being heavily supported by all members around the monitoring committee table. Even some of our colleagues in other Interreg programs are slightly envious of our ability to be able to muster and get project developers to respond to this type of a tool to help them get projects moving forward. So it's been useful, very useful for us. And we're hoping that you'll take advantage of this opportunity and the opportunity coming up in September. And of course, once the call is actually opened in August 16th, that you're raring to go. And of course, in between then and now, you're welcome to give us a call or drop us an email if you have questions. And we'll get back to you, because it's in everybody's interest to keep some momentum going forward towards the new programming period. I see you've got some good numbers coming in there.
We have really good number. Thank you very much. There's 92% of the voters who said that the webinar was useful, and 38% is planning to submit an application, and 8% probably not, no, and 54% will maybe submit an application. So this is interesting numbers for us to look forward to. Meanwhile, we have two hands raised. First, Jose Manuel.
Yes, one practical question. Considering the time frame that you are at the moment thinking about, probably a preparatory project that is successful could be a main project in a potential second call. Am I right? Because if the first call for the new programming period, you hope that is going to be late 2021, and a preparatory project normally should happen between February 2022, August 2022, probably is a preparatory project that is well positioned to be a main project in a further second call. Is this correct, or more or less? I know that there are a lot of implications, a lot of approvals that need to be done at the national and EU level, but does this make sense, or just that question?
Am I understanding you correctly? Okay, so this is the bridging call. Decisions will be made in December. Hopefully they'll open up and start ideally no later than the end of February, because we need to keep the calls, of course, at 6 months and be in a good position for the first main project call, which we've not determined when that will be, but that's something that we'll have a little more information on later towards this year, maybe towards the end of autumn, beginning of winter, when we've got more things that we know about. If I was to understand the second part, or part of your question was, if you join the bridging call and you don't meet the first call of the new program, your efforts that are made in this bridging call, of course, that's energy for you to move forward in terms of you've done some preliminary work, you've done some investigation, and you're looking forward to the second call of the new program. Have I got the gist of what you were saying there?
Yes, Christopher. What I think is that in a natural cycle, if I put up an application in the bridging call and it's approved, imagine in 8th of October, I should be doing this preparatory project that ends August 2022. At that time, probably the first call has already been launched, so maybe I'm well positioned for the second call. This is what I was.
Well, ideally, though, Jose, we'd like you to be aiming for the first call, and again, of the new program. And again, those dates haven't been worked out exactly where you started in. But the point would be is this is why we're doing the bridging call, so you come in at the first call. Of course, if you miss the first call, there's always going to be a second call, but we're looking forward to you coming in on the first call once we've got the block of timing sorted, sorted. And we don't know that just yet. Now, we're not going to say to any project that comes in as a bridging call and is accepted and approved, you can't come in after the first call. No, we're not going to waste that time, because this is our money investing in you and you investing in your idea. So we're not going to say no to that, but ideally we'd like you to come into in the first call of the new program.
Okay. Thanks.
One question from Paula Mikola.
Yeah, hello. I was wondering, when you have the Annex 2, where you have also the types of actions to be funded, and you mentioned the horizontal principles or the horizontal aims, what would be your recommendation at this point to how far do the bridging call proposals need to address these questions?
I would have to say, and jump in here, Kirsty, at any point in this thinking, because we're dealing with the current program, that's what we kind of measure the projects on. In preparatory projects, we're not as heavy on the horizontal principle. We know they're there, but for example, when a project's coming in at the very end, in terms of us approving, not approving, but paying a project, we're not marking against them for the horizontal principles. The concept with the bridging call and preparatory projects is just get an idea moving forward. In the main project, of course, we really want to see that we are following, projects that are adhering or trying to adhere to the horizontal principles. So my sense is that we won't be judging very hard on bridging calls coming forward with respect to the horizontal principles. I mean, that, it's part of the nature of projects these days to be adhering to them. But in the new programming period, as in this current program period, main projects, we do need to see that they are adhered to. Anything to add to that, Kirsty?
Yeah, you did. I think so. Now I know what to answer if anybody asks me.
Yeah, I think it was well explained. Basically, even though the projects are targeting the next program, it's current program money, and everything that applies for current program preparatory project applies to these projects as well. I don't know if there's any further questions. No more hands.
I don't see any more hands or comments in the chat. Thank you for your comments about the webinar being useful. Thank you very much. It's 2:05. We're perfectly on schedule. We're always available to answer your questions at the Secretariat or at the regional contact points. Please don't hesitate. I think we will say goodbye for today.
Thank you very much for participating.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Goodbye.
We'll look forward to your applications and
Have a good
questions.
summer. Bye, everybody.
There's 2 chats, 3 chats. Are these people saying thank you? Yes, they are.